All right, with that, we'll do a highlight video here on game 207, 208, SMU and Tulsa from the AAC. Tulsa, 2.5-point favorite, pretty much market wide, though you are paying for that 2.5, minus 115, minus 120. 64, the total for this one. Joined by professional bettor and handicapper Kyle Hunter from huntersportspicks.com. Kyle, what do you think about this SMU and Tulsa matchup here?
So I don't have a big power ratings overlay, but I like Tulsa in this game. My numbers here on this game, Tulsa -3, total of 65.5. Also lean to the over. I will say that we should check the weather report as we get closer to this game. It looks like it'll be fairly windy here in Tulsa for this game. I think Tulsa had their close call last week. It should have been of their last game. It should have been a loss against East Carolina. Wake up call, I think it could be. SMU has allowed 17 sacks already this year. Can they throw it around here? I think that's really the key to the handicap because SMU is really good in the passing game. Tulsa doesn't blitz very much, but they do have a good defensive front. Tulsa's only played 4 games. SMU's played 8 games. Who does that help? I don't know if there's a right answer to that question, but it's a pretty big difference. SMU has 31 plays of 30 yards or more so far this year. That's first in the country. I will say SMU has not really played up to competition very well so far this year. They could have easily lost to Memphis at home. Memphis hasn't really been that great here lately. I mean, they were very fortunate to beat South Florida. And then that game against Cincinnati still stays in my mind. You know, Cincinnati is a really good team, but SMU was just totally beaten up in that game. Cincinnati's secondary is the best in the AAC, so I'm not suggesting that Tulsa can shut them down the same way that Cincinnati did. At the same time, I like this Tulsa team. I think they're in a good situational spot here, off disappointing performance and up against an SMU team riding high. You know, to me, stock is about as high on SMU as it can get right now. And we like to talk about, you know, you can buy stocks, sell stocks. You want to sell high, buy low. I think this is a sell high spot for SMU. SMU is not a very good defense. They're totally reliant on that passing game. I think Tulsa is good enough on offense to move the ball consistently against them. I like Tulsa -2.5 here.
Yeah, I think to some degree, this is a little bit of a buy low spot on Tulsa as well, coming off of that performance, which a lot of people saw because it was on TV and because there were some things that happened within that game that got a lot of run. So this is a spot where that's the thing that people remember about Tulsa. It's not, they don't remember the good things about Tulsa. Tulsa's performance against UCF, the Tulsa line movement against Cincinnati in the game that was canceled. They remember what we saw last against East Carolina, and it wasn't a great look. I agree with you. I think this is a good spot to play on Tulsa. Not a power ratings play for me. My line's only 2.5 on this game. But Tulsa, to a degree, is a poor man's Cincinnati in that they've got a good defense. They've got a passable offense. And SMU, we saw them struggle with Cincinnati very badly. We don't need Tulsa to cover 7 or 10 or 14. We need them to cover 2.5 or 3. So I think Tulsa is the play here in this one. And lastly, for SMU, you know, they lose James Prochet to the NFL. They lose Reggie Roberson to an ACL. It takes time for new wide receivers that get out there to create separation. One thing you don't have against Tulsa's defensive line is time. So I like Tulsa in this one as well. A consensus opinion from us here on ATS Radio, Tulsa -2.5, or if you have to take a cheap 3, still worth looking at there in that game against SMU. You can find these highlight videos on our ATS YouTube page, or you can subscribe to the full editions of ATS Radio.